Okay. All right. Cassandra, do you have would you like to call the meeting to order?
Ooh, it's been a long time.
I know, right? This one might be a little wild and loose. Who knows? We'll just roll with it.
All right. We're going to call to order the Circulation Committee meeting on September 24th. I'm here.
I won't make everyone do a roll call because the nice thing about online meetings is that everyone's name appears on the screen. So I won't put us through that. I do have one, I mean, this is, fortunately in this meeting, we don't usually do the whole formal agenda approval and stuff, but I do have one point that I'm going to add to the agenda, which is a bit of discussion about the user last activity date. That's we have a few options in the new version of workflows that we didn't before, so we'll have a bit of discussion about that as well. Cassandra, do you have any other opening remarks?
No, welcome.
Okay. All right, well, we will get rolling then. I'm gonna start. I'll start with the big one. This is the topic of discussion that I want to make sure we allow kind of the most amount of time for, should we need it. Or now that this has percolated over the course of, I looked back and we first started discussing this policy in this committee almost exactly a year ago. So I will be curious to see whether, you know, people's thoughts have changed as the world has changed. This may not seem like a very big deal anymore, but the first topic of discussion is this new user policy draft revision. As you know, probably most of you, because you've been in this committee meeting, this has gone through multiple, I'm going to pull it up and turn on my screen sharing here. Okay, turn on my screen sharing. I do not need that window. Okay, so this is the draft policy of the new patron policy. I'm just going to kind of review a little bit of the history of why we started revising this policy. Basically, the original version of this policy referred to the then universal $5 fine block limit, which is no longer a universal fine block. Libraries have since implemented, you know, fine blocks. I don't think anyone has a fine block limit of higher than $20, but the original policy was that if patrons had fines less than $5, you could just go ahead, issue them a card, not worry about the fines being removed. And then if the fines were in excess of $5, you needed to have them basically pay those down. In the new version of the policy, we went through multiple different kind of iterations of this. We've talked through a lot of different options. You know, one of them was just the new library gets to decide whether or not they want to waive it or do it, or we have a policy where everyone has to pay off every cent, or we stick with the $5 block limit. The thing that we in the subcommittee basically kind of ultimately settled on as being the most kind of, quote, fair, as far as we could tell, was to basically say that if they were below the fine block limit at their old library, you can move forward with creating the account. You know, basically, instead of the $5 fine block limit, you just use whatever the fine block limit is at the old library. Of course, this presents the problem that staff at the new library may not necessarily know the fine block limit at the old library, and we don't want you to be in a position where you're having to like look it up and be like, wait, you owe $7, are you okay or not? So basically, though, what we realized is that if your fines are below the $5 fine block limit, you will be in a status of delinquent, but not blocked. So we basically wrote this policy with the idea that if patrons are delinquent or, you know, clear, but not blocked, they don't have any loss, they don't have any, you know, bills or anything, you know, any outstanding weirdness, then we consider them to be in good standing. And then if they are in good standing, you can go ahead and proceed with issuing them a card. So basically in the writing of this new policy, we took that definition of good standing and just outlined what we mean by in good standing at the very beginning of the policy. And then we kind of proceed with the terms of the policy, which is basically the if they are in good standing. And then we get into the nuance of, you know, if it's paid but not blah, 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 blah. So basically, you know, we felt like that was a way of kind of honoring the agreement that they had with the original library because they had signed on for whatever those terms were, you know, kind of when they got a card. Whereas to suddenly go to this other library and have new rules applied to the actions they had at the previous library is kind of weird. And then going forward, obviously they're under, you know, that new library's rules and we'll know the expectations going forward. So that was kind of our logic. And that was maybe more of me than we really needed, but also it had been such a long time since we'd talked about this that I kind of wanted to do at least a little bit of review of it. And I will point out one of the other things that we added to this that is kind of new and that may start popping up in some other policies as we continue to revise and rewrite them is we added this little section at the bottom that's called these other considerations, which is sort of like not things that are not really part of the policy, not really officially policy, but maybe, I don't know, some best practices, some suggestions, some recommendations, you know, a few little reminders. And in this case, it was basically, you may have unfilled holds on a previous account. You know, you might want to talk to the patron about, you know, replacing those holds for them, you know, or things like that. You, if they use Overdrive, you may need to merge their, you know, previous account and their new account so that they don't lose their current Overdrive checkouts, things like that. So those were the couple that popped up in this policy that we kind of wanted to just kind of basically mention that these are maybe best practices when you're registering a new patron is to check on these things. So I think that's enough for me on that topic. Does anyone have any discussion on this? All right, cool, it's perfect. We will move on. So the vote will be unanimous, right? Because there's no discussion. Now, I'm trying to move this so that I can see at least some people. This is very annoying. Okay. Would anyone like me to continue screen sharing, or can I take that off the screen?
Anna, there was a note in the chat. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't. Let me pull that up. Yeah, some people are glad they haven't raised their block limits because money's even tighter now than before. Yeah. All right, okay then. And this is just a reminder, this vote is not to officially approve the policy. When we vote, this is simply a vote to pass, you know, basically to say to users group, we think this looks pretty good. Now you get to vote on it officially. This is a vote to recommend it to users group for voting, not, you know, once we vote today, this will not be, you know, this will not become the policy at that point. So bear in mind for your own internal operations, this is still very much a draft. This is still very much under review. Don't go back and implement this policy today. For right now, the $5 policy still stands. I'm going to stop the share. And this is going to be the exciting part. Let me set this up real quick, I think. Okay, we're going to launch a poll and I will ask you to respond to the poll. So this is my first time doing a poll in a meeting, so fingers crossed. Okay, I have 18 responses, which I'm guessing is probably the number of people who are here who are not RSA members. I'm going to just screen share briefly just so that you can see that I am not so that this goes in the recording. This is the results of that poll. So I think we have a fairly unanimous recommendation on this policy. So I will end that poll. And we will proceed with recommending that to the users group. So I'm going to hit this. Let's see. Oh, wait, there's a share results. Ha. Okay, it basically does the same thing. Cool. All right, so we'll stop that screen share though. Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm very excited because when I was writing the agenda for this and looking at the last time we talked about this, I was just like, we've been doing this policy forever. So, so thank you. We were hoping that just defining the terms off the bat would kind of clarify some of the confusion. So, okay. So the next thing I am kind of, this is a little bit maybe a surprise to the rest of the committee, but it was something we talked about probably 6 months ago. The corollary to that is the fine block limits policy, which formerly was a very simple policy that was basically, it just basically said, you should probably have a fine block limit so people's fines don't just continue to grow, you know, out of control. And the original policy was, we recommend a fine block limit of $5. So when we were having this conversation, we realized, oh, we need to look at that policy too. And this was a fairly, it started off as a very simple revision, and other members of the subcommittee, feel free to, you know, say we may not vote on this one today. It's okay if we don't. But we also started thinking maybe we should add some of those instructions about how to deal with some of the odd situations you may encounter, you know, in terms of fine block limits. So I'm going to share the screen again. Let me hide my poll results here. So basically we kept the original, the original wording, which is, since the purpose of fines is to facilitate the free flow of information and not as a punitive measure or source of income, it is recommended that all online RSA libraries agree to a standard cumulative fine block limit of no more than $20. That's basically the substantial change that we made, just since it was no longer universally $5. You know, for all borrower types except those that are excluded from blocks, fines paid by an RSA member library may be kept at the receiving library. Then after that, we added this bit of information, which is basically just from the payment and billing policy, whatever the name of that, billing and notification policy. That's just basically kind of how to deal with various types of payments, which we included more just for ease of reference. Looking back at it, I'm kind of, my memory of exactly the discussions that we had about including that is a little bit fuzzier, but I think it was maybe just kind of the, since we mentioned that fines paid are kept at the receiving library, that we should then clarify that the receiving library does not keep payments for lost, damaged, and or replacement items. Collection fees must also be sent to the billing library, and then the instructions on how that happens. So that was our logic in, if I'm remembering correctly, in including that in this policy, because we were trying to get away from policies that say a lot of, see this other policy for more information. We kind of wanted all the information you needed to be there, basically. So with that in mind, should collection fee specify $10 or $10 maximum? Just curious if that's the intention. Does anyone, I don't know how many unique libraries we have. I know the unique, if I remember right, the unique, what's the word? Commission, that's not the right word, but you'll know what I mean if I use it. The fee per patron being sent to unique, I believe, is $8. So I think $10, does anyone have a collection fee that's something other than $10, I guess?
I thought that was just the standard
fee. I was thinking it was the standard. I don't know if there's other, I guess if libraries are using another, you know, collection agency, unique is the only one that we have any like records of or dealing with. So I think the $10 collection fee is standard for all libraries. So I don't know that we need to Yeah, I think y'all are right. I think that is, sorry, I'm looking at the chat. Apparently, if anyone used Transworld, they had a $15 collection fee. Alpha Park is $10. They thought that was standard. Jacksonville's $10, thought it was standard. So, ooh, Patty has a link. Oh, okay. Thank you, Patty. I was like, oh, is this a link to something about collection fees? But yes, the link to the policy. Oh, I forgot to put the watermark on this. I'll have to change that. So I think we're okay with leaving it at $10 in the policy, or maybe we could put a note in that $10 is the standard collection fee, for libraries using unique. Oh, where's my draft? Oh, never mind. I was using the same one. So yeah, we could just add a note of $10 a standard collection fee for libraries using unique if another collection fee applies, because we don't have, I guess, a way to have a maximum. It would just be if some library happened to jump on board with a new collection agency. So how are y'all feeling about that? Does this seem like something that we could go ahead and vote on, or would you like to ponder a bit more? This one was a bit more straightforward just because the substantial part of the change was the wording change from $5 to no more than $20. Okay. Yeah, some libraries are no longer doing collection fees. Okay, I will say if you would like to vote on this, please make a motion and then someone second. And if you, otherwise we will table it until next time. I have a question of, doesn't this disagree with the one we just passed? In what sense? If you're talking, Nick, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was typing.
Ah, that's okay too.
Well, I guess my thought is, I mean, I know it says up to 20, but like the libraries that keep their fine limit, their block limit at $5 or $10, they're going to be, they're going to be not in good standing at $10 or $5, and this says up to $20. So it just is kind of, I don't know.
Well, no, we said a fine block limit of no more than $20. So that means you can set your fine block limit anywhere below $20, I guess is my thinking.
Okay.
Because this is just referring to where your fine block limit is.
So this isn't telling it. Well, I guess it throws me off when it's like a standard cumulative fine block. Okay, I see.
Oh yeah, maybe we should take out the word of standard because it is no longer
it seemed like it was pushing everyone
to
say that they need to go 20.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think we should that may just be remove the word standard and we just say you have a cumulative fine block limit of no more than.
The other thing to consider is I know Kindle for a long time when we were talking about moving the fine blocks and when he started allowing people to change the fine block limit, he had stated $5, $10, $15, or $20.
Right.
He did not seem to brook like $14 or
$17.
Yeah,
that.
So do we want to call out? We
maybe
agreed to have a standard fine block of 5,
10, 15, or 20. That makes sense to me. Do any of you have any knowledge of anyone who does have something?
I think we had that in there and decided to take it out because it was really clunky.
Okay. I guess maybe it is always a toss-up. Maybe clarity trumps clunky. I don't know. Okay, well, I tell you what, we'll ponder those couple of things in our next subcommittee meeting. We'll see how we can word that better to better reflect that you do, what exactly we mean when we're talking about the fine block limit, and we'll do a little bit of wording tweakage and then revisit this whenever our next committee meeting is. How's that sound? Okay, that sounds fair. Okay, I will stop this screen share at least. And just so that I can see your lovely faces again. Okay, Well, thank you. That is, those were kind of the big items on the agenda. Next is kind of, I don't know, a little bit of fun stuff. I'm going to talk about the two new workflows features as a result of the recent upgrade. So pop-up alerts will be the first one. I am in the process of working on a cheat sheet for this. Hopefully it will be done pretty soon. I would like to have it done at least before the next users group. I wanted to have it done before this meeting, but there's nothing too earth-shattering about it. I will, let me close a couple of my workflows windows here though, and let me make sure that I don't have any random users like in my workflows memory. I don't want to pull up some random person's account. Make sure I'm the last user in there. Okay. Okay, now let me share my screen. Okay, so you're all familiar with the alerts that automatically pop up for things like fines and you know, bills and statuses and stuff. And when you're doing a checkout, you know, all those notes and stuff will pop up. The place where they used to not pop up was if you pulled up a display user, you wouldn't necessarily get a pop-up window for everything if you just had a note about, you know, a history of returning items with coffee stains or something. But there's this new pop-up alert, which will now pop up in basically extra places. We have enabled this for everyone, in theory. So if you can't use it, let us know. But you may need to go into your supervisor settings to tell it to start displaying these locally. But basically, it's this little pop-up alert. You can see my test, hello, I am a pop-up alert. I'm going to go into my supervisor settings here under display user, under properties. Remember, you'll need to be logged in as your super. And if you scroll down to this user alerts display, you'll want to choose this display user extended info alerts. You'll want to make sure that that's checked, basically, is the thing you would want to change locally. So in theory, if you change that locally, those will now start popping up. Let me know if that doesn't work. We'll see what we can do about it. And of course, you do also have the option to like turn on a sound if you want to. So that's basically it. Same thing on checkout. I think you will want to go into your properties and choose this display user extended info alerts. So to add one of these though, you just go to modify user, pull up the user info, and then under the extended info tab, there is now this alert pop-up option, and you just put in your text and save it. Some of you may remember that for a while, if you deleted the text of a note, that alert pop-up box would keep popping up even though the text was empty. And now it has been corrected that you can just delete the text of those notes and it stops doing that. The alert pop-ups will not automatically disappear if you delete the text. You will have to do the full remove pop-up option. So for anyone who doesn't remember how to do that, you use this little, you know, delete row thing, you know, click in the one you want, delete, and then it's gone. And then we save. And then if I go to make more changes, you know, you'll note that that empty alert pop-up, you know, appears again, so I could add a new one. But if I go to display user now, I don't get that pop-up window anymore because I took away the alert pop-up that was making it display that window. So now I still just have my regular, you know, red text alerts and stuff that I can pull up. But if I try to check out, you know, I still get the pop-up window because that always popped up with fines and stuff in checkout. So basically the difference is that this makes it pop up in display user as well. So it just kind of gives you a little bit of an extra alert if it is something, and it's probably nice to also maybe draw a distinction between the types of notes that we were using in notes, which are things about patron bad behavior, basically, you know, lost items, things like that. This is maybe more, they left their umbrella behind. They, you know, we need a new phone number, things that are maybe a little less urgent. you know, as far as we know, these will not block a patron from, you know, if they have a pop-up alert, it shouldn't interfere with self-check. So this is probably maybe for like the slightly less, you know, vital things, but things you still want to, like, hey, next time this patron comes in, we really want to let them know about this. So the pop-up displays everything. Yeah, the pop-up will, it will display kind of anything they've got in the notes section. That's why I wanted to use my account, because you can see I've got a million notes. In that display user, it will pop up and it will show you all their notes and any, you know, bills and stuff as well. So that's the only thing that I would like maybe Cersei to tweak, as this is maybe more used. Is it would be cool if you could show exclusively that alert pop up, you know, but for right now it makes everything pop up. So, and again, you know, the standard, I would say the standard note rules apply of, you know, please date your notes, please initial your notes, you know, provide enough information that staff at any library will know what they mean. And, you know, my rule of thumb is don't put anything in a note that you would not be willing to read aloud to the patron, basically. You know, be polite and professional and all of that, because sometimes they look over your shoulder. Yeah, so these will not like block people if you are having something that is dire enough that you want them not to be able to check out until you have talked to them. You would still need to apply a bar or something like that. Yeah, or a problem, or, you know, whatever that practice is. If it's something, you know, I would say these pop-up alerts are more for, you know, hey, let me give you back your keychain, you know, types of things, or I need a new phone number, but it's not super duper ridiculously urgent, for what that's worth. Just sort of the level below normal notes, maybe. So that's that. The other thing, this is my new addition to, well, I guess I should ask, any questions about that? Would anyone like to see any of that again? Patty did put in the how to remove a note completely cheat sheet in the chat. So, you know, you can refer to that if you need a memory refresher on using that function. But any other questions or comments about that? And feel free to unmute yourself and talk, or to use the chat. Either way is fine. Oh, that was Carla. Thank you, Carla. Sorry. I am miscrediting. Okay, yeah, the display user. Okay, and let me go back to this, actually modify user, and then you'll open the user account, and then extended info is that last tab, and then just find the one that's labeled alert pop-up. And, you know, I could also, while you don't necessarily need to use the full delete line thing, if to get rid of a note, this is a fake note anyway, you can also still use that to delete notes as well. It's actually a little bit easier. You know, I thought I remembered there being a checkbox at some point as well, but the checkbox to turn on the display user extended info. Is that what you meant, Chantry? Yeah, okay. That is in the supervisor settings, the properties. So if you log in as your supervisor account and then right click on display user, then go to properties, you have to scroll way down to that user alerts display. Yeah. And like I said, there will be a cheat sheet about all of this. It's just not quite done yet because I scheduled this meeting in a week where I had 2 other trainings. So that's why it's not done. But any other questions about that? Anyone would like to see it again? Okay. Okay, the other thing I have is a last minute addition to the agenda, which let me put my notes here. Okay, in the new version of workflows, I don't know how many people had noticed this. It's something I hadn't really given much thought to in the past, but there is a last user activity date, which in order to see it, it's one of those things where I think I'd never thought much about it because it's kind of not super intuitive where you find this. But if you're in Display User and you click on the username, you get this little pop-up with all this information. Under last activity, there's a date. Under the previous versions of workflows, the types of activity that were counted couldn't be customized, basically. But now with version 3.7, my understanding is that we can now control what types of actions count as user activity. So there is, so Kendall earlier today asked if I would bring that up in this meeting and maybe start a little bit of a discussion about what types of activity we want to know about, basically, here. And so I'm going to, this is going to be a delight, I'm sure. Let me see how I can do this. What's the best way for me to do this in a not annoying way? Let me stop sharing for a second here. There we go. Okay, let me share this screen real quick. Okay, so this is from the Cersei Dynex help page, which is a little awkward, but the functions that are currently potentially being included as last activity are this list here. This ours, I think currently we're including everything except the 2 edit functions. So checking out an item, checking in an item, renewing an item, placing a hold, removing a hold, editing a hold, marking an item lost, billing a user, paying a bill, creating a user, creating a request. We don't use requests, so that's kind of immaterial, but, and then editing address information. The things, you know, based on our kind of brief chat about this earlier, there's a couple of things that we think maybe we don't want to count, but we kind of want to get your opinions on these as well. And then other things that we're kind of thinking, well, should we count that? Should we not count that? You know, so checking out an item, returning an item, those seem like things we would want to use. Renewing an item, placing a hold, all that makes sense. Removing a hold, that's, I'm fine with that. Editing a hold is I'm a little more on the fence about. The couple that I'm kind of thinking might make sense to remove from counting toward this are marking an item lost and billing a user, because those are initiated by staff. They don't, my gut reaction is that if you're looking at a patron's last activity date, the thing you want to know is how actively they use the system, you know, and these things that are being done by staff, you know, they don't really give you that information, I guess, is kind of my logic on those, but I am definitely open to other thoughts. Paying a bill, though, that tells you they've come in and done something. Creating a user, obviously, again, the requests don't matter. And then the editing address information. The edit ones I'm very on the fence about. But one thing that, according to this note, you can decide, this is something I might have to confirm with Kendall that this is correct and true in our system, but it does look like you can, yeah, I think checkout and renewal, I think it's going to include, oh yeah, I doubt it includes ebooks. I would be surprised. I could be wrong. Maybe that's a point to ask for clarification of whether ebook, my gut reaction is probably not, but I will add that to a question of, well, and holds for that matter. Okay, does that include ebook activity? And then the note, according to this, the editing a hold and editing address information, you can apparently choose whether you want to know if these records are edited through a patron client or through a staff client. So like if a patron, yeah, no one uses requests, that's why, yeah, we're not even gonna worry about those. But so like my gut reaction would be maybe we want to keep editing, but we want to know if it's a patron initiated edit as opposed to a staff initiate, you know, like maybe we want to know about catalog edits and not workflows edits, or maybe we don't want to know at all. Yeah.
Hey, Anna.
Yeah.
So like when this doesn't tell you what the activity was, it just tells you that activity happened on this
an
day,
activity, right? That matches one of these criteria happened on this date. basically.
Then, I mean, I guess, like you said, it would depend on what the library's priority is in terms of information gathering. If we want this, like, I guess it would have to kind of be one or the other depending on what.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of the question, is what type of information do you want to know when you look at this date? Or, you know, if you're like me, you never really looked at this date because you didn't know what it was tracking, so it's kind of immaterial, you know. And I think that was my thing, was I would see that sometimes and be like, I don't know what that's telling me, you know. Yeah, and editing a hold could be changing pickup location and or suspending a hold. Basically, any of those kind of modify hold functions is my interpretation. So, you know, I would feel like editing a hold is almost always at a patron's request. You're not doing a lot of editing a hold, because editing address information, though, that might be you going in and updating an address for a patron who maybe is long gone but has billing or something, you know, and you've heard back from Unique that they found a new address or something, you know, something like that, or that mail bounced back, so you're, you know, changing that. So that may not be as reliable an indicator as patron involvement. Yeah, so some of this is also just, you know, to have a discussion about like how would you use this if you knew more about it, basically. Yeah. So I'm going to stop talking for a little bit and let you discuss amongst yourselves. And I'll kind of read off as things are added to the chat. For me, this would be great to refer back if a given patron's account expired a few years ago and had a recent activity date stamp. Yeah, I mean, I guess someone's account could have expired and then they dropped something in the book drop 3 years later, or, you know, you see an update on their address. You know, something's happened. Most likely when a patron edits their information, they're doing something else at the same time, checking out, placing a hold, etc. Yeah, definitely keep patron initiated holds edits. That makes sense to me.
And this is Michelle, and I actually do use this quite often.
Oh, good.
And when I am looking at it, I always am interpreting it that it's something that the patron has done.
Right.
So I agree with you completely that I would like it to be things that patrons do, not things that staff do.
Okay.
To me, it's like, okay, this patron hasn't used their card in 2 years.
Right.
You know, maybe we need to get in touch with them and make sure they still actually live here, and, you know, at least try to reach out to them. So that's what I use it for when I'm renewing patrons.
That makes sense.
I look to see when the last time they used. To me, it's like they used their card or they did something. So that's how I use it. So
yeah, that makes sense. So would you say that, you know, eliminating those marking an item lost and billing a user things then would be in keeping with kind of what the way you're using it, to not count those?
Yes,
okay.
I would say that.
Okay.
For me, anyway.
That makes sense. And then Sarah did point out that it seems like batch renewals, though, and like batch fine deletion does. So for libraries that have recently gone fine free and we've done mass payoffs of your fines, that will trigger that paying a bill. So the paying a bill thing, I guess you could also kind of maybe make a argument for maybe not keeping that. Let's see. The only thing I could see editing address information as handy for is if a patron were trying to track down an identity theft problem, but I've never had a patron claim their identity. Yeah, I guess I could see that if someone was like, well, when was that changed? But again, you wouldn't be able to tell that was the activity that happened. And I guess the thing to remember about all this that I had to remind myself as I was thinking about it is that all this affects is that one little date that shows up. All this stuff, you know, obviously you can still tell when a bill was applied, even if we eliminate it from this list. We could still do a report to see when an address, you know, I mean, it's a little trickier to see with the edit, you know, stuff, but sometimes we can tell that an address field was edited, you know, so we can still track, you know, I mean, us at RSA with like scan history logs and stuff. So all this information is still going to be out there other ways. It just won't be included in that specific date field. So I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I guess I see your point, Carla, though. If someone is concerned, or if someone's just generally concerned that that they've lost their card and they know they haven't used it since X date, to have I could see that as a utility of this, to be able to say, well, the last activity on your card was on this date. So if you haven't had it since then you should be worried, basically. Maybe that is a usage of this that I hadn't really thought of. Because, yeah, I guess someone could wander in, with a fake ID and say, my address has changed. You need to send my notices to this place now. Yeah. Okay. So editing address information, we're a little more on the fence about. Well, and editing address information, though, I'm guessing that would include email. So we could also narrow that to address information edits done via Enterprise or RSA CAT, rather than, address information edits done via workflows. That would maybe give us at least a better indicator of engagement than, because workflows would be what we would be using if we're editing it because we haven't heard from a patron in 6 years and we may be updated to a new address or something.
This is Nick from Fond du Lac.
Mm-hmm.
It might behoove us for a while to shut off everything from a workflow standpoint, because assumably anything we do, like for a library closing for COVID or anything else like that, like
Right.
every extension we've done is probably,
Yeah.
I assume, has triggered all these dates. So it's
Right. Well, as far as I can tell,
information's invalid right now.
right.
Much.
The only fields we have that option on is the 2 editing ones. So.
Oh, we can't do that for the.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. At least according to this. Well, and I will want to double check with Kindle that we can, I don't see any reason from reading this to think that would be something that wouldn't work in our system, but every now and then we will find something weird. But it sounds like the editing, keep the patron initiated RSA CAT basically edits, eliminate the workflows initiated edits, eliminate mark item lost and billing a user, and then obviously requests, there just won't be any, so functionally eliminate those. What about paying a bill? Given the mass fine payment that we've been doing a lot of, right, with fine free, I guess also I could see that being less of an indicator than like checking out an item, because someone could have moved across to another state and then gotten a notice and gone, oh crap, I should resolve that, but you may never see them again. I don't know if that's a reliable. What do y'all think about paying a bill as a barometer of patron activity, I guess?
I think since you can't, this is Michelle from Morrison and Mary Wiley. I think for me, anyway, if I would look under billing a user and go to paid and see that they paid
Right.
something. And so there's already a way to do that, I think.
That makes sense to me, that yeah, this is not where you would think you would find that information,
right,
if you were looking for it. Okay.
Yeah.
Does anyone have a counter argument? I think that makes a lot of sense. That's part of why I'm comfortable with take mark item lost and billing a user off. Yeah, forgiving or canceling fines would also trigger that. Yeah.
I think staff move fines around too much to use
Yeah.
that as an indicator.
That makes sense to me. Okay, I'll add that to the things we don't want to track. Well, yeah, because we found this on the book and returned it. It is gonna, Okay, so eliminate paying a bill. Creating a user, obviously, that one makes sense. So that basically narrows it down to checking out, returning, renewing, placing a hold, canceling a hold, creating a user. And then we've got the 2 edit functions basically to keep the ones that are done through RSA CAT, and then that's it. I think that makes sense. I will pass that along to Kindle. I don't know if this is something that will, yeah, oh yeah, and the patron isn't necessarily the one who pays the fines. That's a good point too. Yeah, I think that's the kind of things that my gut reaction would say, this is what I would think this number means, So I'll pass that along to Kindle, and I don't know whether this will return as more discussion in users group or if he will be like, your committee has the word. We'll see, but that gives me some information that I can pass back along to him. So thank you for that. Okay, the next thing I have, Yeah, I was just going to hit briefly library Gmail accounts, and this is something that has come up a lot for us. I think a lot of it is because of various people working from home, accessing things from different devices than they usually do, maybe, or maybe different staff are checking Gmail accounts. And this is probably a little bit preaching to the choir about this, but just a couple of Gmail account reminders. The RSA Gmail accounts technically belong to RSA. If for some reason you have a need to change the password, like you've forgotten it and you've needed to reset it, you have an employee who's left and you feel kind of weird about them still knowing your password or something like that. If you have a reason that you have to change the password, please, please, please let us know. We keep track of those so that if someone at a library gets locked out, we can help them get back in. So please let us know. Also, there are, most accounts at least, should have a recovery phone number and a recovery email address. The recovery phone number should be set to RSA after hours phone number, and the email address should be the RSA help desk. If yours is anything other than those, let me know and I'll help you get that reset. We've had incidents where libraries have like reset the recovery phone number to be like the library's landline phone. And if that happens and you get locked out of the account, you can't get the text messages to get back in, basically. And then the other thing that is the more friendly and less, library copy reminder is if you ever do have trouble getting into your account, I have the ancient little, the flip phone that I can't even believe still exists and works. This is the RSA after hours phone number. So if you ever have trouble getting into your account and you need an access code or something, give us a call. Feel free to call the after hours phone number and then I can give you that code so that you can get in. That's the other thing I want to make sure people know is that if you're getting that and you're locked out, give us a call. We can help. So I think that sums it up. Pretty much just those couple of reminders. Like I said, I realize I'm kind of preaching to the choir on that one, but all the same, but that also may be why if you ever log in and have a phone number and you're like, I don't even know what this phone number is. What is that? It's probably ours. It ends in 22, I think. Watch me have that wrong. Yeah, 6422 are the last 4 digits. So that's that. Okay. Let me see if RSA Cat is working well enough for me to do this. I don't know. Which library do I want to use? We'll use AIR. Okay. The next thing I have is, you've probably seen some of the cheat sheets and stuff at the last users group, but we do have a new cheat sheet about the new book carousels and the options there, and just kind of a little explainer about this. And this is one of those things where it's kind of cataloging and it's kind of Circ, but I know Circ staff often gets the questions of, do you have this book that I'm seeing in the carousel? So this is just a little bit of information about how they work. Basically, you've got your little new book carousels on the things. You have, depending on what your library has set up, your new movies, and your new music. But these are populated based on, like everything else, reports of some sort. These reports can be set up in a couple of different ways. And well, let me grab you the cheat sheet actually. But there are 2 main ways that these can be populated. They can be based on either new items that you have purchased, items that you have added to your collection within a certain day period. Or, and Erica, feel free to jump in here if I misstate any of this, or they can be populated based on when you have added an item to a bibliographic record that was created in the last X number of days. So there's kind of pros and cons to each. Like if you choose the items that we've purchased within the last 60 days, if you've purchased replacement copies of something, like you buy a new copy of Jane Eyre, that's going to pop up on your new book list because, new to you, basically. Whereas if you choose the other option, then it'll be whatever record you add that to would have to be something that has been created in the last X number of days. A lot of libraries use 60 days, some use 90 days. During quarantine, we extended these for some libraries because they weren't adding books as fast, so their lists were basically empty, so we, increased that limit. I know some libraries, switched, were using when the new bib record was created, because they were doing like a lot of upgrading of records, so those weren't new, so there's definitely pros and cons to different ones. Right now these are set up based on the category 3, that kind of item format, movie, book, music, whatever. I'll have to look at the report, Carla, and see if I could, and maybe even talk to Kendall about like, would we break anything if we tried to add, a different one to base it on item cat 2. Let me add that to my notes, though. That's a good question, is could we use cat 2? I will find out, though. Good question. Just pardon me while I write. Okay, so basically, though, the takeaway from that is if you feel like you're seeing things in your carousel list that you don't feel like you should be seeing, or if you're not seeing things in there that you feel like you should be seeing, feel free to let us know, and we can look at how your library's specific ones are set up, and see if we can tweak it so that it works better for you in terms of whatever you have. So like I said, Carla, I'll investigate that question about item cat 2, and that may be something that whatever the answer is, I may share with everyone, because I imagine you're probably not the only one who has that question. So let me see, where did I? Well, this is a good opportunity. Is everyone familiar with using the asset search on the RSA website? There we go. Okay. Here's the link for the cheat sheet. Okay, there you go. All right, I think I'm going to stop screen sharing for a little bit. Okay. Well, I will do a few more updates from RSA. And again, as always, feel free to ask questions. There will be a part where I will just stare at you if you don't talk, so that'll be coming soon. But I will jabber at you for a little bit more right now. And there is an RSA update that I'll just kind of share the general what's happening at RSA update. We are all currently still generally working from home. Some of us are sporadically in the office. I worked in the office on Monday to, have the building open so that someone could attend a virtual meeting. But other than things like that, we are pretty much all working from home still, which is interesting. But mostly we are still able to provide relatively full level of service, and member services staff is always happy to hear from you, because I don't know about, I won't speak for my team, but I am learning that I'm not as much of an introvert as I thought I was, and I am starting to actually miss people. So please call and ask weird questions. I hope I don't startle her too much. I did double check with Kendall that it was okay to announce this. Oh wait, is she? Oh, she's not in here anyway. I can talk about her. Jamie Buckman, our delightful user experience, what's her job title? User experience member services specialist, something like that, is going to abandon us and go to Morton. She has basically, it's okay if I say this, right, Roxy? Y'all have announced Yeah, okay. She will be head of adult services, I believe, at Morton Public Library. So we will be sad to lose her, but glad that we are losing her to another member so that we don't really lose touch with her, because we kind of like that, because people do come and go. You know, we stole Sarah from Galesburg. Guy was, you know, from Peoria. We go back and forth. Liza came and went a few times. So, you know, no one's ever truly gone. But also keep an eye on the listserv for the posting of her position at some point, if that is something that you know of someone who would be great for, or something that you would be great for. So keep an eye out for that. We will be sad to lose her. Next Friday will be her last day. So if you want to send her a congratulatory email, do it before then, basically. A couple of membership updates. We have some new libraries that are kind of in the process. Ransom will be pretty soon done with cataloging visits, and then we'll be getting into patron entry and things like that. So they will be online soon. Williamsfield is still cataloging. Astoria is also cataloging. What school is it that did the weird fusion thing? Oh my goodness. Is that Southeast? No. One school library combined the middle school and high school library into one library, and the grade school joined. Is that Southeastern, Patty? No. Stark County, Scott County. It's one of the schools with an S in the code. Erica, do you know? Thank you.
Yeah, I just realized I'm done eating my late lunch, so I should have my camera on. So,
Oh.
yeah, it's Stark County
Thank you.
Elementary School in Wyoming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
All those S something schools always get confused in my mind. So yes, so their grade school is a new member, and their high school and middle school have now combined into one library. So they're still just two branches. So those are the membership changes. So do be, especially, I mean, if you're like me, the S schools were ones you always had to double check on the membership list anyway, but do make sure maybe you've printed a current membership list, so that if you're labeling delivery, they're still using the same middle school code, even though it is now the grade school. So you'll want to label it to the grade school instead. So it's a little bit confusing. But I figured I would just mention that so that you are aware. I think that's all of the updates from members right now. All meetings, we're basically going to be doing this virtual thing, at least for, you know, committees of this size, through at least the end of the year. I anticipate it being quite a while before we're able to have a CERT committee meeting in person. For smaller things like the subcommittee, maybe, I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and say probably through the end of the year, though, on that as well. I know there are the membership levels committee, you know, that'll be a smaller committee, so they may try to meet in person at some point before the end of the year in a large space that allows, you know, social distancing. As far as trainings, we're doing as many virtual, we're trying to keep up with virtual trainings, trying to offer, I'm offering at least a CERC workshop and a HOLDS workshop for at least once a month through the end of the year. Erica's team has taken the basic cataloging training online, and, you know, is offering those monthly as well. We're going to be trying to continue to offer the virtual office hours monthly-ish, and the roundtables will be kind of as needed, basically, as we encounter something that seems like a good discussion topic, things like that. But generally expect interactions to be online, basically. The few exceptions, though, is we are, in the member services world, we're starting to get back into doing occasional site visits. We are limiting these basically to kind of essential things, like visits that we just really can't do online. So these would be situations where there's like a new director and no one else on staff is able to train them internally. So we would go visit in that situation. I'll be going out to Quincy, Notre Dame on like Tuesday because they have a new school librarian and there's no one internal who can provide training for her. We're also, you know, maybe more specific like tech helpy things for briefer visits, though I'm gonna be going to Carrie's part of the world tomorrow to do some like receipt printer setup help, you know. So things like that we you know have tried to do online and we couldn't make it work, you know, or it was just enough of, you know, thing. So for like ransom, when they get into doing, you know, patron entry and stuff, we'll be doing that as an in-person visit, just because library onboarding is not going to be something that we're going to be able to really do terribly successfully in a solely virtual format. But that basically we're still going to do as many things as we can virtually, and we are requiring that everyone who's doing basically anything in person with us is masked and, you know, trying to be socially distant, and if you invite us to lunch we will probably say no. But so don't be offended, but we're trying to, you know, minimize any risk in that regard, you know, for the safety of everyone involved. So that's just kind of so you know what to expect. You know, I wish I had updates about what things would look like beyond that, you know, beyond the end of the year, because that's actually kind of starting to loom. But I don't know. No one knows. It is what it is. So, but that said, this is a group that I will, you know, specifically shout this out to, is I am also still willing to do custom trainings. I haven't had a request for one in a while, but I am still game to do custom trainings for like specific libraries if you wanted to do a training for like all of your circulation staff. Or, you know, it doesn't have to be, it could be on a specific topic, it could be a wider range training. So if that is something you feel the need for at your library, let me know and we can set something up. We are also still, you've probably heard us talking about it in users group and things. You know, Kindle has been doing a lot of work to get the new help desk kind of up and running. So hopefully that will improve our flow a little bit in terms of responding to requests and tickets and being able to look back at other interactions and stuff. So hopefully, in theory, membership will not notice much of a difference other than us saying, please email the help desk a little bit more often, and hopefully more effective assistance will actually hopefully be, if you notice any difference, it will hopefully be positive. But those are just kind of the things that we are currently working on right now. I am going to do a little brief Rails update, just because they have some new stuff, basically. I don't know how many of you used the new L2 to register for this training versus just using the Zoom link that I sent, but there is a new L2. It looks like this. Mostly it's relatively similar to what you have seen before. One thing I would suggest that everyone do when you have time is to just go into your account and, you know, kind of make sure that all your information is correct if you haven't already done so. You know, make sure you're affiliated with whatever your relevant agency is. We have had a few, you know, growing pains like anything new does have. You know, I have occasionally had people have trouble registering for events. So if it is one of our events and you are finding that you're having trouble registering, or one of your staff is, please just send an email to the help desk and we will see what we need to do to make sure that you're registered. With everything being virtual, you know, if all else fails, we can complete the Zoom registration and, you know, get you the access link and stuff, even if we have to bypass L2 to do it. I think, from what I can tell, though, a lot of those issues have been kind of corrected, hopefully. So hopefully that is all improving. One of the big differences, though, is the layout of the events. If you go to events now, it does default not to that calendar view, but you can still get to the calendar view by clicking there. And you can also, it's a little bit easier to sort by sponsor, which I think is kind of nice. So like if you wanted to see all the RSA things, you could just click on Resource Sharing Alliance and hit search, and then you just see our events. And then you could also go to the calendar. One thing that has been pointed out is that you can also narrow the events to the sponsor and, you know, choose your preferred view and then bookmark that page. And then that way you can go back to see that view. So whatever works for you and how you want to use it is, you know, all that. But I figured I would at least mention the new L2 and show you some of the, I'm not going to try to do a training on the new L2 because I am myself not that familiar with it. But if you hadn't been on it in a while, you might be startled. The other thing is, I'm mentioning this because there's a lot of, you know, associated training which might be, you know, relevant to your interests possibly. Rails is kind of starting a little equity, diversity, and inclusion initiative. There's a, you know, whole committee kind of devoted to this, but I know this is something that a lot of libraries are, you know, kind of exploring. And I figured I would point this out. If you go to the Rails website, it's this little tab right there. You know, they've still got all their COVID-19 stuff, which is very helpful and has all the delivery flow charts and stuff too. So I'm also going to shout that out. But this EDI one, and there are, you know, mailing lists and, you know, a team about, you know, equity, diversity, and inclusion in youth services. And there are some links to other training events and resources. So I kind of wanted to point that out since I know that this is definitely not something that Rails is alone in working on. So if any of that is something that, you know, would be helpful to your organization, be aware that it is there, basically. Okay, I have talked more than enough, so I'm going to turn off my screen share, and I'm going to basically open the floor for discussion from Circ staff to Circ staff. You know, how have things been going? What's been going on with you all in your worlds? Share any initiatives you have, any, you know, if you have a story, an anecdote, a thing that is working, whatever it is. We will try to take turns because Zoom doesn't like it when two people talk at once. So Cassandra looks like she wants to talk, but I can't tell. She made a face like, oh no, I do not want to talk.
I mean, I can talk about a resolution to a thing.
Ooh, that sounds cool.
Well, I mean, essentially it boils down to I biffed it. So like, but at least it's a resolution. So one of my patrons lost an item from Peoria, and I talked to Cassandra a couple times this week because the patron was billed for it twice. And I was like, what? And the patron's like, what? And then Cassandra's like, what? And then like, so essentially like, I just essentially made a mistake. Like, I feel like I've still got Swiss cheese brain from COVID. And instead of marking the item lost and letting it do its thing, well, I billed the user. And I think part of the issue came from the fact that she was like right here and wanted it paid for now. So it's like, I was kind of thinking how to get this done as quickly as possible with her. And like that's the kind of thing I feel like is hard when the patron is right in front of you, like wanting it right now. But like we couldn't figure it out. And then it was like, oh, it's just because I messed up. But but it's resolved now.
I biffed it is the story of my life the last few weeks. You know, like ask Nick about the 600 notices I sent to patrons who shouldn't have gotten notices. So, you know, or don't, I don't know if I want that story out there, but yeah, I think everyone has COVID brain right now. And, you know, I have, I have found though that just saying I biffed it will actually get you pretty far with a lot of people and just be like, yep, that was me. So I don't know, maybe y'all are all just very nice, but sometimes just kind of going like, yes, that was a mistake. I'm sorry. It's fixed. And if that doesn't work on people, then they've never made a mistake in their entire life, clearly, and we should just, I don't know. But yeah. I don't know. Anyone else have anything exciting? I was curious, did anyone go to that Dealing with Difficult People webinar that was a couple of weeks ago? I passed the link on to a few people who were having some challenging, shall we say, interactions around mask, wearing and stuff. Did anyone go to that? Was it good?
It was on my agenda to go to, and then I ended up having to do like work stuff, and I was like, no, why? So I missed it, and I had to caught the recording. So
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was the person I talked to was having a pretty bad interaction. I won't call them out, but they're not here. But I was hoping it would be helpful to them. But that sort of thing specifically, if anyone hears of any great resources, I'm sure that library that I talked to is hardly going to be the only one who is having need of that sort of thing, and that's the sort of thing that can be from anywhere. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't go to that one, but I went to one a couple weeks ago that Ryan Dowd put out. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He's the guy who does homelessness in libraries. And so it's like, I did that one. And then and that one, when I did it, I had to pay for it, but I guess there was so much demand for it that he made it available for free to any librarian who wanted it.
Okay.
And it was really good. And it's like that particular, even though Ryan Dowd focuses on the challenges that come with dealing with homelessness and poverty and mental illness and addiction, he said that this is a blanket for all patrons, like a blanket, like set, like thing to keep in. And I found that most of his advice is applicable and really good for any kind of difficult patron interaction.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll find the link right now.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. I found a link to his general website, but
I was going to recommend the same one. We had our entire staff watch it. It's about an hour long, broken up into like 4 different chunks, but it is really good.
Good. Yeah, that's good to hear. If either one of you, whoever finds the link first, please share in the chat. Yeah. All right, anyone else?
I had a question for people, not so much a resolution or a story.
Okay.
If that's okay. So like we haven't turned collections back on yet. And I was curious who all has, if everyone just had it running the whole time, if there's anything that we need to think about with turning collections back on, especially doing a 7-day quarantine.
Right.
I was looking for some advice before we take our next step, whatever that's going to be.
I will let the group answer first, if anyone has anything.
So Quincy doesn't have collections per se. We got rid of our unique subscription several years ago. But we do an internal collection letter written by our local lawyers. And it says, if you don't do this, we'll send the police after you. And occasionally we do. We started that. We resumed doing that shortly after the lost the lost trigger was set back up in June or in July. And of course, the first month has been a lot of, well, I didn't know you were open. I didn't know you were open kind of nonsense. But at this point, it's back to business as usual for 99% of our encounters with people. They've lost the books and they don't care. So we'll seek other ways, but we did go ahead and turn that on, but we probably did it a little too early back in July. But it was a good way to get our name out there that we were open. Not like it wasn't 17 other places, but whatever.
That was what I told myself about the unnecessary notice I sent to 600 of Nick's patrons. I was like, well, at least they know you're fine free now.
Right.
Sorry, but oh no, Cassandra's having audio problems. Well, it's being recorded, so I've worked with a few libraries recently on some collection stuff because you know, sometimes it's because of.
I knew it.
Greg, were you trying to talk, or?
Having any kind of problem with me, just discuss it with me in private. I'll try to do my best.
I'll go rogue and mute. But anyway, I've been working with some libraries on their collection reports, not so much because of, you know, kind of COVID related, but because of sometimes libraries going fine free. My recommendation, though, one recommendation I have is definitely to have a chat with Unique and their representatives. My experiences thus far in talking to them have all been pretty positive. They know workflows actually really well, which I was kind of surprised by, because I was working with one to set up Peoria's reports actually. So they're pretty savvy in terms of answering nuts and bolty types of questions. But I mean, my experience has been positive. That may not be, you know, true of every rep. I don't know, but I know one thing that is nice about the collection reports, and this is something that we can help with too, is that they are reports that can be run in test mode. So we can kind of double check what the output will be to kind of confirm that you're not going to inadvertently be double, you know, collectifying somebody. You know, that the date ranges are set right and stuff. So if that's part of the concern about, you know, you may basically want to reevaluate the date range that those are set for, because usually it'll be like anything that's more than X number of days, but less than, like, you know, usually you put an end cap on the range, like 100, you know, anything that's like more than 30 but less than 120 days or something that has been billed that long ago. So that's something to consider, though, is kind of when did you stop sending people to collection, so that you know when, you know, where to set the end cap on that and how much catching up you need to do. But yeah, but I am happy to talk. I can talk collection day, collection notices and bill notices till the cows come home now, because one good way to learn all these notices inside and out is to screw them up royally. So I'm a pro. But no, yeah, I think that's probably one that just kind of, okay, yeah, 30 days after bill, that makes sense. Yeah. And they do kind of suggest, like, you don't want to make whatever the date range is too narrow, because then you could risk, you know, missing people. But yeah, if you do like 30 to 120 days or something, that would probably be fine. But yeah, if you want to talk about that, let me know. Yeah, I'm trying to think. The other thing to think about is, like, some libraries did have collection notices both for bills and for fines. If you're going fine free, you can probably eliminate the report for fines, because you kind of by definition won't be charging them anymore. So, but one thing to know is Unique will send irritable sounding emails if they expect to get a report and don't get one. So make sure you tell them if you're going to eliminate one of your reports. I learned that the hard way. Yeah, that's my best suggestions, though. Does anyone else have anything they would like to discuss? Okay. I know no one will be terribly brokenhearted if we do end this a little early. I feel less guilty now that I haven't made you all drive, so.
I have a second one if I can be annoying.
I don't know. How annoying are we talking?
Well, no, just by asking a second question.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't know how many fine-free libraries are actually here right now, but how are they dealing with people wanting to pay fines at their library? I know we've talked in the subcommittee about trying to figure something out with that in the long term, but, like, I really don't like taking fines from patrons from other libraries, but I don't want them not to be able to check out. I tried to suggest somebody pay their fine that was under $5 at Greg's library, and end up having a patron throw money at me and almost knocking our plastic barrier over in the process. So yeah, are they just taking it? What's going on? What's our processes?
At Washington, we're not taking money attached to overdue fines at all. One of the things that I do is I've had a number of patrons who I'll show them the app and they're like, ooh, this is great. So I'll show them the app, or I will help them pay online on through our whatever. I don't have words. And I've also, if I can renew items, I do it. But yeah, that the one, I feel like the people who are trying to pay overdue fines who don't have access to paying it like on the app or or online are few and far between. For me anyway. I can't speak for everyone.
Yeah. Cassandra, have you run into that much? I know you're having audio trouble, but since y'all are a recent addition to the Fine Free crew. No. Yeah, we're apparently having audio issues with you. We can't hear you now. Yeah, that's something we had begun talking about as do we need an official policy on governing that? And I think that'll probably be a topic of conversation at our next subcommittee meeting, is because I do think we're maybe going to have to say something at least, because it's going to come up more and more. Or less and less if everyone goes fine free. I don't know. It could become more of an issue for a while and then eventually a non-issue altogether. But either way, probably another topic of discussion that we should entertain. I mean, also just given that some libraries have done the temporary fine free thing, there may be more. Yeah. Okay. I will add that to my notes. All right.
I have a question about book drops, if anybody else has a similar issue. Quincy has a number of remote book drops across town, and we have not opened any of them due to the quarantining kind of issues and collecting issues. You know, I can't figure out how to send somebody to collect out of the bin every day, but let it sit for 7 days without touching it, without having somebody like wade in the germs.
Right.
But I'm starting to get patron feedback that they're getting really frustrated that it's not open at Walmart on the other side of town. Anybody else have remote book drops that's not opened them either? Am I alone?
Tina, do y'all still have the Lake of the Woods book drop? Or you're muted.
Sorry.
That's okay. Have y'all reopened that one? And if so, how are you handling pickup?
Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Okay, you've got it open. Okay. And someone is Sharon says they're only providing curbside services. Still curbside. If someone has requested a print job exceeding the first 3 single-sided pages, they're accepting cash and coin payment. And she takes care of those transactions to avoid exposing the rest of the staff as much as possible. Use sanitizer in the hands with the money, wash it and put it in the money box, and then make sure to wash hands properly with soap and water. Sanitizer is located at the door to try to minimize exposure. Okay, payments. Patrons are paying in a sealed envelope via book. Okay, if they're paying by check, they pay in a sealed envelope via book drop, which is quarantined for 7 days, and then they call the patron to let it know it was received. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Bobby. I don't know. I mean, I picked on Dunlap because they were one of the ones I knew of with a offsite drop box. I don't know that there are too many other libraries that have them. So you may be shy on feedback on that. I don't know. I would tell your patrons that they were incredibly privileged to ever have a drop box at Walmart, and that's not a thing that everybody has. I don't know what the no. I'm being flippant because I don't have a solution. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But yeah, I don't know if limiting pickup. Just saying how I guess if you were to open it, how is its capacity? I mean, I know at my old branch, our book drop filled twice a day, basically. So we couldn't have let it sit. Would you have the option of at least, maybe only doing it once a week if it were opened, or would that not?
A couple of our lesser used ones, yes, but like the one at Walmart and the one in front of Hy-Vee,
No.
they're full every day to capacity, and they're big bins. I mean, they're the big.
It's not like someone could easily just throw them in a Rubbermaid and while wearing gloves and not touch them. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess I mean, from my perspective, is the safety of the staff is more important, and I'm sorry that convenience is temporarily unavailable would be my response. Right. But then I'm a mean person, Well,
and that's been my response, because I can't come up with a way to ensure that the book on the top wasn't dropped off 5 minutes ago. So, I mean,
yeah.
And I don't have, other than buying some sort of hazmat suit, I don't know how people pick up books and not like load them up their arms when they're cleaning out a book drop.
Well, yeah, especially when you're doing a big book drop like that. Yeah, you're big arm loads. Yeah.
We don't have remote drop box issues, but our drive-through drop box is right out front, and we had to close that this whole time. And we try to tell people they can come up to the building, and we have big bins that we purchased just during this time. But of course, people say, well, you haven't been accepting returns, and we're like, well, yeah, we have for months, but and we just have to keep telling them that we're quarantining, and there's no way that we could empty that and quarantine it. We just need a new, we only have 2 bins that fit in there, and it just wouldn't work. And sometimes people understand when you say it that way, sometimes they don't.
Cassandra, do you know how they've been doing it north with that, since they don't have an interior drop? Are they have, I mean, not like I'll be able to hear you, but do you know if they've been having issues with that? I don't know. I was just curious because they don't have an interior drop box. They only have exterior, so I was curious. Okay. May just be one of those unfortunate things where, like a lot of things in this situation, there may just not be an ideal solution to, which sucks, but that's the world these days. All right. Anyone else? I will also accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, Richard has moved to adjourn, and we will, shall we just affirm by acclamation? I'm not going to do the whole announce the next committee meeting now thing, because honestly, I just don't know. We will aim, what do we normally do? Quarterly or every 3 months? So that would be November or December. So information will come. But thank you all for attending. Thank you for your discussion. Thank you for your hard work. I have, like, I don't know, whatever the not survivor guilt, because none of you are deceased, thank goodness. But I have work from home guilt, because I don't know, all of you on the front lines are doing amazing work in a very challenging time. So thank you for your service. But yeah, and call us with questions. We love to hear from you. So everyone, please stay safe, stay healthy. And I will go ahead and end the meeting. And I'll get this posted as quickly as I can. So if you had coworkers who couldn't attend, you can pass that along to everyone. Have a good weekend. Have a good week.